Welcome to This Explainer. I'm your host, Dr. Kim, and today we're diving into the absolute heart of modern molecular biology and biomanufacturing. I want you to picture a breathtaking, state-of-the-art laboratory. We've got automated fraction collectors and precision pumps humming away in this perfect, sterile environment, with glowing protein molecules floating around the instruments. Our mission? We are going to conquer the art of protein purification using an absolute powerhouse of a tool, fast protein liquid chromatography, or FPLC for short.
So it all starts with the ultimate biological challenge. Imagine you're looking at this incredibly complex, chaotic cellular soup. Inside that microscopic universe, you've got thousands of different proteins, DNA helices, and just a mess of cellular debris. How on earth do you isolate just one specific recombinant protein, or a monoclonal antibody, or an enzyme from that chaos? And how do you do it with exceptional purity without destroying its fragile three-dimensional structure? This isn't just a standard lab experiment. It's a high-stakes scientific quest that's literally essential for everything from clinical diagnostics to cutting-edge pharmaceutical research.
All right, let's jump right in. Here's our roadmap for mastering this tech. We'll start with the quest for purity, move into choosing the right column, and selecting a chromatography technique. Then we'll cover executing the FPLC run and wrap it all up with avoiding rookie mistakes.
Section 1. The Quest for Purity.
At its core, fast protein liquid chromatography, FPLC, is a highly specialized form of high-resolution liquid chromatography. Now, unlike traditional HPLC, which often uses harsh organic solvents that can completely denature your proteins, FPLC is explicitly designed with biocompatible aqueous buffers. It uses computerized grading control and highly specific stationary phases. Basically, think of it as a gentle, low-pressure system that's been perfectly optimized to isolate highly active enzymes and fragile therapeutics while completely preserving their native structure and biological activity.
And this brilliantly illustrates what a victorious purification actually looks like. Imagine seeing this pop up on a futuristic holographic display in real time. This UV chromatogram is measuring absorbance at 280 nanometers. As the buffer flows through the system, the detector is constantly monitoring protein concentration. Notice that massive, towering peak right in the middle? That is your target protein successfully detaching from the column. It is the undeniable visual proof of a clean, highly efficient separation.
Section 2. Choosing the right column.
Before we even touch a sample, let's talk hardware, starting with the aspect ratio. Essentially, the diameter of the column versus its length. It's kind of like choosing the right traffic lanes for your molecules. Tall and slim columns generate much longer interaction times. That's absolutely perfect for techniques like size exclusion, where your sample really needs time to navigate a complex maze of pores. On the flip side, short and fat columns allow for much higher flow rates and significantly faster processing, assuming you've got good flow distribution at the inlet.
Then we have to consider the material of the column itself. As Dan Yukon from Astrea Bioseparations points out, this is not just about aesthetics, guys. It is about laboratory safety. When you pack resin tightly, it generates serious back pressure. Glass is extremely brittle, and if it exceeds its pressure limit, it fails dynamically, which is a polite way of saying it can dangerously shatter in your face. Plastic, however, is designed to just crack, safely relieving that dangerous pressure buildup. You absolutely must always evaluate your materials against the pressure your specific system is going to generate.
Speaking of pressure, let's talk about the number 20 micrometers. That is the incredibly tiny size of some high-performance FPLC resin beads. Because they are so small, they pack incredibly tightly and generate massive back pressure. To actually keep these beads inside the column, we use filters called frits. The golden rule here? Your frit porosity should never ever exceed half the diameter of your resin particle. So if you have a 40 micrometer resin, you need a maximum 20 micrometer frit. Overlook this, and you are either going to lose all your expensive resin or you'll create a deadly flow restriction.
Section 3. Selecting a chromatography technique. Okay, so your starting sample condition directly dictates your tactical mode of attack. If your sample is in a low-salt buffer, ion exchange uses electrical charge to separate the proteins. Got a highly salty sample? Hydrophobic interaction is your best bet. If you happen to have a specific tag like a his tag or an antibody, affinity chromatography offers incredible single-step purity. And then there's reversed phase, which is highly specialized and mostly used for polishing tiny peptides, simply because its organic solvents can easily denature your larger proteins.
Section 4. Executing the FPLC run.
So the crucial point here is following these 4 universal sequential steps. Think of it like a beautifully choreographed molecular dance. First, you equilibrate the column with your starting buffer to prepare the environment. Second, you inject your sample, allowing the target proteins to bind selectively to the resin. Third, you wash the column, flushing out all the unwanted cellular debris and unbound impurities. And finally, you alter the buffer conditions to elute or detach your newly purified target protein directly into the automated fraction collector.
Now, what's really amazing about this gel image is that it provides undeniable physical proof of those steps actually working. Notice the load and flow-through lanes on the left. They're completely smeared with hundreds of contaminating proteins from the original cell lysate. But then look at the elution lanes on the right. Those thick, dark, singular bands perfectly represent our isolated target protein. The impurities have completely vanished during the wash step, leaving us with a highly purified product that is completely ready for downstream molecular biology research.
Section 5. Avoiding rookie mistakes.
To survive in the lab, we have to turn to the strictly enforced Miller Lab before you begin checklist. First, and absolutely foremost, always filter your buffers through a 0.45 or 0.22 micrometer filter. FPLC systems use tiny internal tubing, so unfiltered dust or particulates will cause catastrophic clogs. Next, turn off unnecessary UV channels to save your lamp life. Wash the column thoroughly with 10 column volumes of water before storage, and finally, always store your column in 20% ethanol to prevent any bacterial growth. But I really need you to pay close attention to that water wash step. If you finish a high salt run, let's say a 1 molar sodium chloride elution, and you immediately pump 20% storage ethanol into the machine without a water wash in between, those buffer salts will instantly crystallize and crash out of solution. It's a fatal error. Those microscopic salt crystals will permanently clog the lines and completely destroy your expensive column. So whatever you do not skip the water wash.
This leads to a really profound observation from Dan Yukon at Astria Bioseparations. He notes that scientists, especially in academia, often rush. He says they grab the first column that looks close to what they need, but don't really understand its parameters and specifications. They use old frets, they blindly assume pressure tolerances, and they skip vital preparation steps. The takeaway here? Understand your hardware, respect the physics of the system, and proceed methodically. A little patience at the bench will literally save you weeks of wasted effort.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for the day. Let's say you've isolated your perfect enzyme. You've totally mastered FPLC at the bench scale with your tiny 1 milliliter column. But how will your delicate, finely tuned purification strategy hold up when a biomanufacturing facility asks you to scale it up to process hundreds of liters for global therapeutic production? The physics change, the pressures change, and the stakes absolutely skyrocket. I strongly encourage you to always keep the big picture of process development in mind. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and I'll see you in the next explainer.